Okay, what I want to cover here is I get a lot of students come into my classes that have been taught box modeling, and most of them have been taught in Maya. So I get this is kind of the stuff I get all the time. Nope, they're not naming their stuff. You know, they're kind of lazy, not naming their stuff. So I'm going to go in here and show how to model, because box modeling is, you know, we did it back in the 90s, but there's no reason to box model anymore. It's a bad modeling technique. So first thing I have to do is look at this stuff, and when I get them from students and I pull them in, the students, you know, this thing's 4 inches tall, so there's a problem. You know, I don't know if they're not being taught how to model to scale, but, you know, there's a problem, especially when you want to transport this from one software to another. It's got to be correct size. So I'm in Max, and Max is set to centimeters, which is what Maya is set up to also. So I'm not sure why this student's work is so small, but I get this a lot. People don't measure their stuff. So I've scaled this up. Now they're building subdivision surfaces, which is great. So it comes in with an open subdiv on it. So this is exported as an FBX out of Maya into Max. And it puts an open subdiv on it, which is great because Max has open subdiv too. So this is what I get. This is box modeling. This model looks horrible. It's going to be extremely hard to get this to the actual shape of what we actually want the chair to look like. So if you're just doing some generic chair, okay, you can build this, but you know, I'm having these students build specific chairs. Okay, so now I'm going to have to take the time to go in here and name all this stuff because the student was too lazy to do this. You know, overall students are kind of lazy. Probably artists in general are kind of lazy. They just want to model. They want to have to actually be organized in any way. So, but you should be organized as you make things. You should name them. We don't leave them. You know, you can see this is box modeling because every one of these things is made from a cube. And of course, that's what it looks like. It looks like it was made from a cube. The idea that you're going to make an organic structure from a cube, to me, is just kind of insane. I mean, can you do it? Yes. Really good modelers can do it. I don't know why you would do it. I mean, that technique, we did that back in the 90s, and now you have really good modeling tools. I mean, you didn't have good modeling tools back then. So, why? I mean, if I'm building a box, yeah, I'm going to build box modeling, but not organic shape. Okay, I also noticed that this thing was turned sideways. And it's not that I don't sometimes model sideways, because I do, but I'm going to rotate this around so it's facing correct. Okay, so then now I've got it the right size. Everything's named, and it's facing correctly now. So I'm going to pick it. I'm going to reset its X form. So that realigns it to the world space. And then we'll need to go ahead and convert all that to editable poly to bake that in. So now this is a clean model facing the right way. It's the correct size, and the relationship to the model to the environment to the world space is correct. So let's get the material that's on here, and that's fine. Let's name this. So we have, you know, naming our, even though I can't spell, advanced, and I don't want all this reflection on here. So let's do about a 0.4, and we want some roughness on this. 0.6 would be good. That'll give us a good shader in our viewport. And of course we want a black wireframe with this. So okay. So now this is finally set up correctly for me to deal with. So what I'm going to do in here, oops, got to put it up on the ground. What we're going to do in here is I'm going to show you some building methods. So I'm not going to go in here and build this entire chair, but I'm just going to show you some building methods, some modeling methods, some modern modeling methods, not ancient modeling methods. Okay. It's not that he's done bad thing in this modeling. It's just it doesn't look anything like the reference. It's like the distant cousin. Okay, so you'll see that, you know, this is a very organic kind of chair, and you're using mechanical modeling methods. And so that's really going to be a problem for us. So let's go ahead and create a layer for the old chair, so it's easy for me to hide and unhide. Okay, let's just focus on the main chair part of this. So one of the things is, one of the hardest things is creating things that are round, especially trying to create things round from something that's a box. So the front of this is round. It's almost a perfect circle. It's squashed a little bit, but we can start with a perfect circle. And so taking something that's a box and make it into a perfect square circle, can it be done? Yes. Is it hard? Extremely hard. So I'm going to start there. Now I could do it with a cylinder, but I'm going to do this with a tube. So anything that's round, we want the polygons to radiate into the center of it. So let's go ahead and put our shader on this. Okay, let's set some settings here. Defaults. I don't need all those height segments, and I want 12 sides. I want divisions of 4. 12 will be good. And I'm going to convert this to a polygon. So I'm just going to bake this in. I'm going to grab the front polygons because that's all I want. I just want those. So I'll do a Control-I to pick the back polygons and then delete those. And then I'll also want to center the pivot point to the center of that. And there's where that's going to be the front of the armrest there. Okay, nice rounded shape, which obviously you can look at this box modeling one does not have it at all. Okay, so now this needs to be, we'll go down. So I'm going to grab these edges. I'm just holding down the shift key to clone that. I'm going to pull them down a little bit, and then I need to go over here to my modify panel, and I want to go ahead and make those planar on the y-axis so that they're straight. Okay, so now if I put a subdivision on that, I'll go ahead and use, I mean, you get a turbo smooth. I'll tell you what I'll do though. Instead of using a turbo smooth, I'll come back and put an open subdiv on this. So that it matches the other one, but we're subdivision services, so we're going to subdivide this. Okay, so go ahead and pull this down. I'm not trying to make this chair exactly like it. I'm just trying to show some modeling methods. So I'm going to get something that's similar to it, but not exactly like it. So basically, I'm trying to show ways to model things and not use a box method. Okay, so here I'm just going to inset this, and I'm holding down the shift key, and let's scale this in a little bit, and then we're going to pull it back out. So we're making a little inset in this. It's not exactly like the original, but I'm not really concerned about making it exactly like the original for what I'm doing because I'm just demonstrating methods. Okay, so I'm scaling this in once, and then I'm going to scale it in twice, and then I'm going to collapse that. Okay, so that's going to give me tries in the center in there, and so I'm going to remove every other one of these. I want to leave the ones at the top and bottom, and then I can just remove those, and now those will be quads, and that can be subdivided well. So let's put a... I don't really like turbo smooths. I know people use them all the time, which it's okay, but it defaults without the isoline on, and normally I like the isoline on. Of course, we can always change that. You know, you can use a turbo smooth, you can use a mesh smooth. They're basically the same. They're not exactly the same, but they're basically the same. Okay, so I can grab this border and slide it back. Let's go ahead and put a locking loop on this so when they're subdividing, they won't totally round that. And tell you what, let's go in here and put some chamfers on these to hold these shapes. And they changed the chamfer modifier several versions back. And I need to go down here and change this to 1 so it doesn't indent it. That'll look pretty good. We want to get the ones in the valleys also. So we're just double clicking to select those. I want to get the outside ring also. And the chamfer modifier will keep the last settings, and so we can just pull that in and set it in. It'll have the same settings. Okay, so now that'll keep that inset on there. It'll need 3 iterations. And let's go ahead at this point, go ahead and let's switch back over to an open subdiv so that it's exactly what Maya would use in Max Subdivision. That way they're both exactly the same. Okay, so you get the idea of being able to kind of inset things into a piece of geometry. All the pieces radiate to the center of the circle, which is what we want. And they're all quads for subdivisions. Okay, I want to create the piping that goes around this. So I'm putting a loop through the center of that. Then I'm going to create a shape from that. So in Max, that shape from selection, it'll make it into a spline. So this will be the armrest piping. Okay, and let's go turn that off for a second. And then we don't want that line in there anymore, so we're going to remove it, which is Control Backspace, and that removes that line out of there. I just temporarily put that in there so that it will, I can get it right in the center. Rename the armrest. I hadn't named that yet, so now I can make the spline renderable, and then I can determine how thick I want it. I can slide that out now. Also, I'm going to change it to 6 sides. It doesn't need 8 sides because we're going to subdivide it, and so we don't need that many. So I'm just going to pick both of these and put the open subdiv on both of them together so that I can turn the subdiv on and off, and it'll affect both of them at the same time as an instance. Okay, so I can just pull that piping out a little bit, and then I can thicken it up to cover in that space. Go back to my spline, and I can turn on my show end result so I can see it at the end, and then I can fill that piping in. And so that's how we do the piping that goes around a lot of furniture. Okay, we got a kind of rounded bottom down here. We want to deal with that. Let's just go in and put us a okay, so let's just put us a swift loop in here. Oh, I got to select, I still had the piping selected. Okay. So here we go. And now I can swift loop just down there at the bottom, which will hold that shape. And, so there we go. So that's kind of how I would approach initially doing that armrest. So it seems to be that's part of the parts that the student was struggling with, is just having the ability to understand how to, you want to start with the hard parts. And so having something that was round is the harder part. Being able to try to make something box and go to something round, we don't really want to do that. You want to make it round. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of how I would deal with that armrest. So now let's go on to a different part, which is kind of like these kind of, I don't know, dog ears that are on this chair. Has really bad polygon flow on this. You want the polygons to flow with the organic shape. I'm going to build this with a spline. There's lots of ways you could build this. You don't have to build with a spline. You could build with polygons too. I wouldn't build it with a box, but I'm going to build it through a loft. And so I'm going to initially draw a line. Okay. And what we're trying to do is to get that kind of flow dog ear. And you can see it kind of is smaller at the top and bigger at the bottom. So I'm going to do that with a loft. So I'm building with splines here. A lot of people say, oh, you can't build with splines. Well, yeah, they can't build with splines because they don't know how to build with splines, but I build splines all the time. So this is going to be the path that I'm going to loft shape around. I always build real chunky because we're going to subdivide it. So I think that's a mistake. A lot of people think, oh, you can't build with splines because they try to smooth everything, and I don't smooth it. I do it chunky because it's going to be smooth when I put my subdivision on it. Okay, so that's what we call my path. Now I want all those to be corners, which they are, but just double check. And now what I need to do is to create a shape that I'm going to extrude along that path, and I'm going to use an end gun. And then I'm not going to make 12 sides. I'm going to leave it at 6 sides, which is half as many as I need, but then I can manually put the other ones in later. Okay, so that's my end gun. I'm going to extrude that along that path to make the final shape. So we go to the that path, then you're going to go into your create. We're going to change to compound objects and then get a loft and then pick the shape, and then I can pick the shape and it's going to loft it along it. Okay. Now initially when it puts it on there, let's go ahead and put a gray shader on it. It's going to subdivide it a bunch. So we want to go down here to the scan parameters and we want to zero both the shape and path steps down. So it's giving me exactly what I sculpted and not subdividing it. Okay. Now I'm changing the path to 100% so I can get this again, and it's going to put it at the other end of the path. So I have 2 cross sections on each end of the path. I don't want the caps. I'll come back and cap it later when I need to. And then I can go in here and I can scale. So I can scale this to be smaller. I needed a smaller piping down there, and can scale this to be larger, and it'll interpolate between them. So that gives me a nice flowing shape. Of course, this is really chunky, and that's because we haven't put a subdivision on it yet. So let's go ahead and do that so you can kind of see what it looks like. So we'll use our open subdiv again. And we need to have that at 3 iterations. And now you can see I've got a nice smooth kind of a pipe that's going on there, which more closely resembles the reference. And it's flowing with the geometry flows with the shape instead of being a cross mathematically grid shape, which is what he has in the original one. Okay, so I'm going to put an edit poly on here. And the reason I'm going to do that is, and I'm going to put it down below the open subdiv, it's because I want to delete half of this because I'm going to use the symmetry modifier. So as I do one side, it'll do the other side. So we're just going to get rid of that. And then we're going to put a symmetry, which is basically means I have an echo, an instance on the other side. So symmetry, and that way I can model on one side and it will do the same thing on the opposite side. It'll make my modeling faster. Okay, so, all right, we're going to go down to our edit poly. And now what I want to do is kind of clone the inside of this shape so I can start making the rest of this without that's inside the piping. So I'm just going to kind of move this out so we can kind of see it a little bit better. All right, so we go back to our edit poly. We're going to grab edge. We're going to double click to click this inside edge. I want to be on view, not local axis. I'm holding down the shift key, and then I can clone this by pulling in, and this is going to start creating the center part of this. Okay, so now I have to go back in and realign these vertices. They don't have to be perfect right now. but I'm trying to keep them flowing to the center. Okay, eventually that bottom piece needs to be flat, so I'm not pulling it all the way in. Okay, so same thing, doing it again. All right, that's going to come down like so. Let's pull this back in, and that's kind of okay. It needs to be flat eventually, but this is all right. All right, so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bridge across these big pieces in here. I've got to complete this piece, so we're going to grab this one and this one. I'm going to do a bridge between it, and that'll be okay. Then I can go ahead. I'll need a center so I can just connect that. I could have put that in there with the bridge. I just didn't think about it at the time. So when I did the bridge, I could have added this segment in there. I just didn't think about it. Okay, so I can just go ahead and cap this. And then if I cut that right in down the middle, then it will be quads. So turn my snap on, cut it right down the middle. Okay, then that'll give me all quads in there. It'll subdivide nice. You'll see we get a nice flowing shape in there. Okay, that's starting to look pretty good. Okay, this is indented too much. I don't want it that, so I'm going to pick all these polys. I'm using pick by angle, so I can pick all of them at the same time, and then I'm going to pull this out a little bit because it's just too far in. And I make sure I have my snap off because otherwise it'll kind of pull. And that'll work pretty good. Now I'm going to hold down the shift, and I'm going to pull out a little bit more. And that's going to give me that little indent that goes around the edge. So there's a little indentation that runs around it. It's looking pretty good. Okay, let's go to the side. And we want to straighten some of this up a little bit. So let's go ahead and name this. Let's call this left arm top. You can name them whatever you want to name them, but you should name them so it's kind of easy to remember what's what. So it's not cube 1, cube 2, cube 3, cube 4, cube 27. Okay, so now I'm going to come in and I'm going to kind of clean this up a little bit. So what I want to do is turn in my angle snaps, and I want angle enable axis constraints. What this means is once I start pulling an axis, it'll only go that direction, and then I can snap all of these to be straight. Okay. There's another one back there on that inset, and then this one. So now those are all straight. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I don't need these end pieces. When I did that extrude, it gave me these end pieces. I can snap that, but the reality is I don't really need those pieces, so I can just pick that and delete it. And there's one at the bottom too. I don't need that, so let's pick that and delete that. Yeah, okay. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to create a shape from that. Okay, and then that's going to be our piping that's in there. You know, I don't like that. I don't want it to clip in, so let's come in and put a swift loop in here and get it where I want it, which is a little bit more like right about there. All right, so now let's extract that out of there. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And let's name that piping. Okay, and we can go ahead and just copy. Actually, I can pick both of them and paste instance. And that way, when I put one on, it'll go on both of those at the same time. Okay, so that's kind of, the ends of those are screwed up because I forgot to tell it not to, I don't want the caps. So go back to our editable spline, turn off caps, and then it'll get rid of that cap down there. And now there's our little piping that we want in there. Okay, so like I said, I'm not trying to make the exact thing, but I'm just showing you techniques where you can get geometry where the geometry flows. It's more organic, and it works with what we're doing. Okay, so what I'm now is I'm turning on an edge constraint because I want to slide these up at about a 45-degree angle to pull out to have this go out to the armrest. So I've put this to constrain to the edge, so these will just slide on the edge. So it's not changing the shape in any way, it's just sliding along the edge. Okay, let's do this other one down here too. I think I want that one to go up too. I get tired of looking at that gradient background when I'm modeling. I like it solid. Okay, so that's pretty good. So we can select that and deselect those. And then hold down the shift key. I can pull that out. Oops, I got to make sure I remember to turn off that constraint to edge so it won't pull it out. Okay, so I can pull that out, and then I can make that planar on the x-axis. And so that's pulling into. Now, I probably need to put a little swift loop in here to kind of hold that bend a little bit. I might need to put two later, but for right now, I'm just trying to hold it a little bit. Okay. And that's looking pretty good. Okay, so I need to have this inside needs to be a little bit different shape than the outside. So we're going to have to move away from this symmetry. Let's just go ahead and just clone it for right now. And then what I did was I turned the weld off of the symmetry so it won't weld the two halves together. And now I can delete that outside half. I could have done this with my original too, but I don't want to mess the original up. So I'm going to work on this one out here first and see. All right, so All right, so let's just move this back, and I'm using my vertex snap to snap it back in place. And now these are two separate things, and so I can do one, manipulate separate from the other. Let's get rid of that because it's kind of flat on the inside. Let's get rid of that one. Okay, so now it's going to be a little more flat. It's still not completely flat, but for right now, it'll be okay. Oh, that removed that down there. Okay, I need to back up and deselect that. Now remove that. I don't want that removing that background part. Okay, there we go. That's better. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so we'll go back to the original, go back to our edit poly, and then we're going to do an attach. We don't need that symmetry right now, or anymore. And we just want to do an attach, and let's attach these two together. Now they won't be welded, so I need to go ahead and grab my borders. Control A will select all the borders, and then I need to convert that to a vertex selection and then weld that so that those are welded together. And so now I have to go ahead and drop my open subdiv back on top of it. 3 iterations, and now the inside doesn't have all that information from the outside. It's flat. It has good geometry because we had good geometry from the outside, but we just kind of deleted that valley in there so that it's more flat. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this back, and let's kind of align it, and I'll show you how to stitch these two together. So I'm just going to grab this and scale it out a little bit to be closer to the size of the other. And that's looking probably good enough. Let's pull the back of this forward a little bit to give it a little bit more of a taper to put these two together. Like I said, I'm not really trying to make this exact chair. I'm just trying to show you modeling techniques. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, you'll notice my first one has 12 parts to it. The back, new one, the flowing shape only has 6, but that's fine. I can add in loops that I want. Just going to pull in a little bit more space in there. Okay, so I'm going to dump that subdivision, and then we're going to attach these together. So I'm going to attach. Now these are attached together. And then I can come in here and start welding. So I'm going to do a target weld. And of course, it'll be every other vertex because there's 6 on the spline that I lotted from, and there's 12 on this, on the front part. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to swift loop, put a loop in the center there and one on the center on the other side. And then I can come in and I can target weld those on. Okay, that looks pretty good. And let's turn our open subdiv. We'll see now that flows into there. you know, that back part's too short, needs to be taller, but like I said, I'm not trying to get it exactly. If I was trying to get exactly, I'd pull that artwork in here to match it up. But right now, all I'm really trying to do is just show you modeling text, modern modeling techniques, not these old ancient 1990s box modeling crap modeling techniques. Okay, I didn't think to grab that when I moved it. Let's see if I can just align that. No, let's undo that. Let's manually put it in place. Not that hard. Okay, then when I chuck it in, okay. The other thing is we only need the outside of this piping. We don't need the inside. So it's still a spline. So I need to put an edit poly modifier on here so I can get to the polygons themselves. And that needs to be underneath your subdivision. So now I can go to polygons and I can pick those inside polygons and delete those. And it looks like I still got... Let's pick that. Let's grow it and delete. Okay. So that gets rid of half of that because we won't ever see that. So it's, you know, it's not necessary because that piping's just going to be down in that valley. Sometimes you can't do that because you'll see, you know, the ends of the piping, but for this, it'll work fine. Okay. That's pretty much what I was wanting to show you. Oh, yeah, I forgot that piping's wrong too. Okay, that looks okay. Let's put a subdivision back on the original one, and you can see how mine has much better polygon flow, captures the essence of the original chair much better. Just there's, you know, that box modeling is just a horrible modeling technique. I'm not saying it can't be used for certain things, but just to me, just the concept that I'm going to start with a box and then somehow make the box not seem like a box. Well, then why did you just not start with the box to begin with? You know, if your whole goal is to make it not look like a box, then why start with a box? Okay, let's put some intersections in here that we can weld in. Right there. And there, and there. All right, so let's snap all these down so it'll be going straight back. So the way this snap works when you put this constraint on is it can only move whatever arrow I initially pick. So you can see my mouse, I'm going to the right, but it only moves up and down because that's the arrow I picked first. Okay, I don't like this kind of twist that's happening there. So let's just slide this down a little bit. Can't really put a swift loop in there, so let's get to the side. I'm going to use a P-Connect. P-Connect just means I can drag my mouse with the button down, and every time I hit an edge, it'll put a point in there. It's kind of like cutting, but I don't have to worry about did I hit the line or not. Okay, I'm probably going to have to cut that inside that little valley manually. Okay, cut that. All right, I'm going to cut this down to get rid of that triangle that's in there. Also, I'm going to do the same over here. Cut this down. Okay, so now I can remove that. I can remove that. So those are all quads again. And let's get those all kind of in line. Point back behind it there. They don't have to be perfect. I mean, that's one of the things about a piece of furniture is it's handmade, so everything doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. All right, let's look at our smooth on there, and that's starting to look pretty good. Okay, so hopefully you learned some techniques here. So let's do the cushion. This cushion is not too bad, but I don't think it matches. It seems to me, and it's hard to tell from these shots, that cushion actually has a little ear on it. So it's not completely straight. It comes out and then it has a little bit of a dog ear on it. I can't tell, but I think that's kind of how I would probably have a tendency to build it. So let's show you how I would build this. So I'm starting with the spline again. Doesn't have to be done with the spline. That's kind of just the way I like to do things. We don't need it to be renderable. Okay, so that's the basic shape of our cushion. But then I want these little dog ears out here, so I'm going to create another little rectangle. And then once I create that, I'm going to want it to center as far as X and Z. So it's centered. The ears on the left and the right will be the same size. Okay, so I'm going to take my main spline that I created, and I was going to go ahead and convert it to an editable spline. And then I can, I'm going to grab these, all the vertices and turn them into corners. They're Beziers right now, and I don't want Beziers, and so I'm going to slide this back a little bit. Okay, so now I can attach these together, and then I can go into my spline mode, and I can get the trim tool. And I can trim out what I don't need like that. Now those vertices need to be welded because they're not welded together. So we pick everything and we corner them and we weld those. Oh, there's a Bezier. Let's make that corner again. Okay, now I'm going to fillet. I picked all the vertices and I'm going to fillet them. Now, I'm using a fillet because there's a little technique where I can come in and I can optimize the spline, which will give me fewer points on this because I don't want it to be rounded because I'm going to subdivide it a little bit. So if I come down and I turn this down to 2 steps, 1 step, 2 step, then it's going to optimize that. And I'll show you that here again in a second. Okay, so we're going to put a modifier on this. We're going to extrude this up to give us our thickness. Let's kind of move it down. Okay, we need to go ahead and put us a gray shader on that. So let's apply that. Okay, so down at the spline state, if I get in close, you can see that the default is 6, and as I turn these down, it's going to optimize those corners that are better for subdividing. Okay, I'm going to turn this down to 1, and that way when I cut across these, so let's put an edit poly in here. When I cut across them, it'll give me quads in the corners. So cut across here, 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 and then back across. Okay, then those are quad corners. I need to cut from the back across, and then from the back to the front. Okay, then I can cut this across, and I cut this one across this way, and then this to the front, and then I need to cut from the back all the way up to the front. Okay, just cut these little corners in. So those are quads. And, okay, that's looking pretty good. So let's just put us... All right, we need to cut these down. So we need to cut it down. I don't need to do the bottom because we're going to put a symmetry on it, so I just got to get the top right. Okay, be sure and turn that snap off. So S key turns your snap on and off, so I have it on when I'm at the top and off when I'm on the bottom. Okay. All right, that's quads. And then let's ring this. And let's connect those. And we want an odd. So there's a center. So we don't want even, we want odd. So 7 will work. 5 might have worked. 7 gives me a little more control. And then we need to do it back the other way. Those are too skinny. We want them to be kind of squares, so we're going to want to change this to 5. Okay, that looks... So those are pretty much squares. They don't have to be perfect squares, but a square is perfect. So, all right, we need a locking loop to hold that. And, okay, let's subdivide that. Oh, I need to center the pivot. Okay, so let's put a symmetry. So you can see when we put a symmetry, we can do the bottom. So that's going to already match up. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now it's too flat. So what we're going to do is let's put our open subdiv on there. And then we're going to go in here. Okay, this bothers me a little bit. It's too straight. Oh, why did that grab the end? So I want a little bit of an angle like that. Wait, uh-oh. What the heck? Okay, let's try that again. There we go. All right, pull that back. So it'll angle those a little bit, which will be a little bit more organic looking than straight box. And I may decide I want to kind of smooth that a little bit right there. Let's do the same on the other side. Okay. Yeah, I like that better. Softer. Okay, so on top of the symmetry, I'm going to put it in Edit Poly. And now what I'm going to do is put a freeform deformation on it. I think a 4x4 will work for what we need. This is basically kind of turns this into a soft selection kind of thing. And then I'm going to grab the control points and I'm going to grab the center ones. There's 4 of these. And then I can pull it up to kind of bow that a little bit. That looks pretty good. I think I want the edges down a little bit. So I'm going to pick those and pull them down a little bit. I like that. So it's kind of bowing in the center. I'm not worried about the bottom because we won't see the bottom. I mean, I could do this and do a symmetry or whatever, but I'm not worried about the bottom. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and pull the front out a little bit so it bulges and it's not, in the front, so it's not so flat. Let's kind of pull those back just a little bit. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So it's kind of more puffy now. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, I'm going to copy this because I'm going to use it to grab the piping off of it. So let's go ahead and convert that to a poly. And I can grab the piping. So we'll grab an edge. Maybe a little bit higher up. Maybe say that one. Okay, so let's create a shape from that. I tell you what, that's going to give me a lot of polys in there. Let's back off of this. Yeah, it's going to give me more polys than I need. It would still be okay. So let's undo that. And on our open subdiv, let's turn it down to 2 instead of 3. I think 1 won't be enough. So we'll go 2. Now convert it and let's pull a spline from it. Okay. All right, then I don't need that anymore. Turn that into renderable. It's too thick. And let's go ahead and turn that to 12 sides because I don't think I'm going to subdivide this. I don't think I need to subdivide it. And then we can put that into place. And then it's still too thick. How did I turn it to editable poly? That was a mistake. How did I do that? It was an accident. Okay, back up. Editable spline. Okay, so thinner. There we go. There's our piping around there. And we need piping at the bottom. Yeah, but we don't want that bow. Can I just flip it. Yeah, but that's going to be... It's going to be bowed, and I didn't do the bow the bottom, so that's not going to help us. Let's undo and go back to where we cloned that off. Right there. And let's go ahead and grab the bottom and the top at the same time. So we'll grab, say, that one. Okay, then we can loop those and create our spline for the top and bottom at the same time. All right, so then I can delete that, and now these, there we go. And that'll get our top and our bottom. 12 sides, skinnier. Okay, there's our piping. And I need to move the bottom separately, so I can go to spline and move it. There we go. Okay, so I need to name this. This is our seat cushion. This is the new one. Copy that. Oops. Copy it again. And paste. And piping. Okay. So, all right. So, that looks good. Let's go ahead and put our open subdiv back on the original. And got some funky edge to it, how he's doing it. Okay, so two different approaches. Mine's a little more crisp than his. His is a little round, which will be a problem with the piping. Okay, so let's turn on our other piece we made. And then let's go ahead and kind of move this into place. And there you go. And that's kind of what, that's Subdivision Modeling 101, pulling edges, using some splines, strip modeling, edge pulling, not box modeling. Not box modeling. Woohoo! Okay. Hopefully that helped you. Thank you very much for sharing your time with me.